Well, today it's the 14th of July and it's happened. We've reached the final episode of Loki, the third of the originally announced trilogy of TV shows announced for the MCU. A complete story starring Tom Hiddleston's breakout characters, the one pre-Thanos breakout villain from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I let WandaVision and Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier pass by fairly unremarked, but now we're here at this point and Loki's concluded. I just want to record my reaction to it because it's actually not where I expected to be. I really enjoyed this show and I'm going to do something here initially, no spoilers. I'll tell you at what point I'm going to really start interrogating the spoilers. But if you're curious, is Loki worth watching? Is Disney Plus worth investigating? Loki as a show, more than Falcon and the Winter Soldier, far more than that show, and definitely, possibly more than WandaVision. It's a really high concept show. It's going to reward people who like big ideas, like to see big ideas explored in an intelligent and thoughtful way. And that's not to say that WandaVision didn't do that. WandaVision it had a big idea, but the big idea was sort of more of a spectacle. It was, what if we made the TV show look like TV shows from the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, kind of a re-examination of old historical sitcoms and seeing what the MCU would look like underneath these different lenses. It was fun. It was almost a gag each week, re-examining Wanda and Vision under those lenses. And as we slowly got closer and closer to the modern day, the lens became more transparent and it became more easy for them to try and break out of that mould. The end revelation of WandaVision, I think a few people disliked because they were theorising about this grand scheme, but no, largely it did what it said on the tin. The villain was who the villain looked like they were. There was no grand revelation at the end, no sudden upturning, just this, heartfelt emotional finale. Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier was less high concept, it was much more direct, but I'd enjoyed the journey. Loki, on the other hand, Loki was always going to depend upon how well that high concept idea landed. The first episode really took where the character was at the end of Endgame. So the character that we'd been adoring ever since the first Avengers movie, who'd been on this redemption journey, they're dead. They're not trying to bring them back. This is Loki as he was back in 2012. As he was when he was just at the height of his powers in that movie, and ultimately a really unpleasant and despicable person. And then just as that movie ended, they came from their highest point to their lowest point, defeated, disgraced, humiliated, realised that he'd lost, that he could never win. And Endgame took that character and said, okay, put them to one side, do a side route, time travel shenanigans. We're going to do something interesting with him. And this TV series picks up exactly where that movie left off. It takes Loki as he was then and starts exploring who the character was and what journey he was on. The entirety of the first episode is really just people talking. It's Loki reacting to this strange and unnatural situation of the Time Variance Authority, this group of international time police, so international, intergalactic, interplanetary, multi-dimensional time police, whose job it is to protect the sacred timeline. And the first episode is Loki reacting to them, reacting to the fact he's become a variant. He's no longer the actual Loki. There's another Loki out there going on and doing what he was meant to be doing. And this first episode covers him discovering what his destiny would have been, how he would have gone on to betray his mother, how he would have watched his father die, how he would have died himself after seeing Asgard destroyed at the hands of Thanos. And from this point onwards, by the end of the first episode, we're freed of that continuity. This is now a free agent, someone with his own plans and destiny. In that, he meets Owen Wilson. I really like Owen Wilson in this fantastic role for the actor as Agent Mobius, and a few other characters in the TVA who will try and educate him on this new universe. But really, after that first episode's out the way, it sets up this tone of each episode as is not a direct continuation of the episode before. Now, each episode, it's a new scene, a new problem. Now, it does carry on. It does pick up the characters where they were, But there's a real sort of stepping off point and stepping on point where each episode really is a new problem to face, a new obstacle to be overcome, a new situation and environment. So in the second episode, you have this exploration of one doomed environment. In the third episode, you have a bit of a two-hander where Loki and another character go off, and they're in a bespoke trapped environment. Then the fourth episode brings them all back together at the Time Variant Authority, before it then leads them towards the 5th and 6th episode on this discovery of who's really pulling the strings. And at the end of the 5th episode, which again was a bit of a bottle episode, meet a new cast of characters who are in their own situation, discover what the problem is, try and overcome it, solution at the end. I ended that 5th episode thinking, you really haven't set anything up here. You've created this big mystery, and I've no idea what the end's going to be. All of the websites wanted to tell you what the end was going to be. All of the websites were saying, okay, if you look at the comics, it's probably this. But all the websites were saying that in WandaVision, and they got it wrong. Well, they largely got it wrong. There was a bit of a kickback at WandaVision that it kind of let the rumour mongers and the people looking for Easter eggs down because there were unfounded Easter eggs that didn't lead to anything. Well, in Loki, the Easter eggs do lead to something. The final episode had all the strengths and weaknesses of the show so far. It was just a load of people talking. But it was high value, high concept talking about a big idea, and it set a lot of stuff up. What is this stuff? Well, spoilers, if you want to watch the show without, a deep dive of what's gone on, don't listen any further. The whole show is set up. I complained episodes 1 to 5 set up the character of Loki, but they didn't really set up the revelation. That's because episode 6, the whole show, is set up of this character who is going to be the new big, presumably villain in the next stage of the MCU. Loki's our jumping on point for Kang the Conqueror. Yeah, you can't say you heard it here first because the internet's been crowing about this for months. We knew he was coming in the future Ant-Man movie, and he's probably going to be in many more films than that. That said, the word Kang isn't used once in this script, unless I'd missed it. Conqueror was used. The character, as expertly played by Jonathan Majors, has many names, like he is he who remains, the Conqueror. But really, this was all about Loki and Sylvie meeting this character, him explaining what's going on, why it is so important to prevent multiverses from colliding, and ultimately this dynamic between the Loki that we've been following and Sylvie, the main secondary character behind Loki and Agent Mobius, is Sylvie, a female variant of Loki from another pruned timeline, who has spent the entire show on a mission of revenge. She wanted to know who was behind all of this. She wanted to know who was pulling the strings, and she wanted to have vengeance for her dead universe. And in the end, she gets it. She kills Kang and presumably dooms the entire Marvel multiverse, the whole next few films and TV shows, into what's going to be the next ongoing behind-the-scenes threads. It's all Loki's fault. Well, it's not our Loki's fault, it's another variant of Loki's fault, but it's her fault. Everything that follows is going to be because of her actions. Well, that's an interesting concept. But I want to ask how interesting, how well set up is Kang as this character? How engaged am I? How much is this making me want to come and watch the next Doctor Strange and the next Ant-Man film? I'm not sure. I really enjoyed Jonathan Majors' performance. It was interesting. But this isn't the character. This character's dead. This isn't the person we're going to be following in the next film, presumably. This version of Kang was one whole true version of the character whose whole point of existence was to prevent alternative multiverses from existing, from coming into contact with ours, because he considers some of the alternate versions of this incredibly powerful character as dangerous. He's a dictator, he's a fascist, he's someone pruning alternative realities and dooming millions and billions of people to an untimely death, but he's doing it to save this one version of reality from alternate versions of himself, and we never get to meet any of these alternate versions. We never get to see them. We hear from his own lips that they are terrible. We heard exactly the same thing in episodes 1 and 2 when the TVA was founded. They said there was a multiversal war and that their job is to protect it. That wasn't a lie, if we believe what Kang, the unnamed Kang, has said here. The whole purpose of the TVA hasn't really been challenged. Their existence, their origin is changed. Who they are is changed, but their purpose, their job, that's exactly as it always was. And so Loki's been on this lesson, this journey of discovery, and he's discovered more about himself. The main turning point for me is this point in episode 5, where he sees so many versions of Loki's just turning upon themselves. It's like this moment of realisation of the futility. This is the path he's always been on. If you keep betraying people, if you keep being untrustworthy, then this is where you end up. We've had scenes where he's told, you deserve to be alone because nobody trusts you. He's had that beaten into him in a time loop. And then he goes to the end of reality and he sees all of the alternate versions of Loki, and it's pathetic. They just keep turning upon each other. They can't be trusted. They can't be saved. The one small group of them who do seem to have some redeemable elements, Richard E. Grant's fantastic performance. I'd say the TV show is worth it itself for what Richard E. Grant did in that 5th episode. The young version of Loki, who seems to have killed Thor and as his reward been banished here, and the older version of Loki who realised and contemplated just how pathetic their life is. That was a great episode. But the problem with the whole show leading up to the revelation of Kang, and then Kang ending with this threat about what's to come, that's... do I believe that's going to be wrapped up in the next series of Loki that's just been announced? Or is it going to be wrapped up in the movies, in Ant-Man, in Doctor Strange? Where does the priorities for the MCU lie right now? Is it both movies and TVs equally? Is the TV now the focus? It almost feels right now like it is, because Black Widow wasn't doing that much original. It was kind of a nostalgic look back. It was introducing a few things. It was not a bad film in its own right, but my interest in it was largely diminished because we've seen Natasha Romanoff's story already. We know how it ends. So, will Kang be resolved in the next series of Loki? Or is he going to be resolved in the movies? Or is he going to be even more long term than that? How long are we have to wait for Loki Series 2? I'm interested to find out. And I did enjoy this. I enjoyed the individual episodes. I enjoyed particularly episode 3 and episode 5. Really good TV show for those episodes, for those performances. But the high concept ideas at the end, I'm not going to say Kang didn't land for me, but it just left me wanting more. And I suppose that's Disney's game. But right now, as of July 2021, I'm a bit unsatisfied.